Hi, my name is Heather Drust, and today, along with Logan Austin, Tina Phillips, and Katie Rushdie, I will be discussing RFID technology. I will begin in a moment by discussing just a basic overview of RFID, and then we will continue talking about its functionalities, the way that it becomes a source of business value for companies, the processes it impacts within those companies, and some applications of where this technology is used and where it could be used going forward. Before we can discuss the use of RFID, we want to talk a little bit about what kind of technology is RFID, and that would be automatic identification, or auto ID commonly called. And this is a term given to technologies that help machines identify objects, and it's normally coupled with data capture. So not only are we tracking objects or people or information, but there's a way to capture that to where that information is useful. And it's useful because it helps increase efficiency or reduce errors, or it frees up staff to perform other duties instead of keeping track of things that the technology could do for them and save them that time. Some of those examples would be barcodes, smart cards, voice recognition, biometric technologies, optical character recognition, and what we're going to talk about, radio frequency identification, which is RFID. To simplify RFID, we can explain that it is a microchip that's in a tag or label that stores information. The information is sent to a reader when the microchip is exposed to the correct frequency of radio waves. And this automatically identifies people or objects or whatever the tag is on based on that stored information that the RFID serial tag and serial numbers identify. The tag can also be called a transponder, and it's made up of the microchip and the antenna. But the antenna is what enables the chip to transmit the ID information to the reader, and the reader converts the radio waves reflected from the tag to digital information, and that information is passed on to computers, and that's how we are able to make use of the information, whether it be for record keeping, supply chain management, or other uses that we'll discuss. What I do want to quickly clarify is that RFID is not a barcode. Those are both auto ID technologies, but they're different. Barcodes are line of sight technology, which we'll discuss in detail later, meaning that a scanner has to see this barcode and it has to be oriented toward it. So this is your food at a checkout line, those kind of barcodes that are going through, or your ID, any of those kind of things. But RFID doesn't require a line of sight. The tags can be read as long as they are within a range of a reader. So these are those squares that you may see in your textbook that are keeping track of where that textbook is going, who got it, how many are sold, things like that. It doesn't need to be scanned when you purchased it, but when it passes a reader, it can be read. RFID designates products that have UPCs, or Universal Product Codes, with an EPC, an Electronic Product Code. And this is what marks it as not just this is a box of Cheez-Its went across a line at Publix, but can identify an exact unit, not just a group or a general piece of information or a general product. A few of the goals of RFID use, which I've talked a little bit about already, are reducing administrative errors, labor costs, internal theft, errors in shipping goods and in inventory levels. That's about that supply chain management, just increasing that efficiency. Anytime you can keep a better track of where things are and the most detailed information about where they are and what they are, it's going to help increase your efficiency and security. Many of these goals of efficiency and security have led RFID to be applied in certain specific areas: payment systems, supply chain management, the tracking of usage, and location detecting. So as we go further to discuss the functionalities and the business values and the processes impacted by RFID, these are the areas that you'll see a lot of the connections with.
RFID technology is increasing and spreading all over the world. It is becoming more and more important in our lives. We should observe and consider its major functionalities. For example, RFID technology can provide battery-free and maintenance-free wireless data transmissions. One of the many advantages that RFID tags has over barcodes is that they do not require direct line of sight scanners to operate. Another major advantage is that RFID tags are very durable and effective in harsh environments and extreme temperatures. Some RFID tags have a battery and some are battery free. The microchip, which is attached to an antenna, is referred to as the ID tag. The ID tag can be active, passive, and semi passive. A passive tag is battery free. It uses the electromagnetic field created by the reader. When an RFID reader transmits an energy field, the tag is alerted and provides power for the tag to operate. RFID passive systems are the most common. An active tag does include a self-powered battery to boost the operating range of the tag and offers additional features such as temperature sensing. A semi-passive tag only uses a battery to run the tag circuitry. It sends the information using the reader's power. As previously mentioned, one of the major functionalities of RFID tags is that they do not require the tag to be seen. They do not require direct line of sight. RFID tags have replaced barcodes through the use of radio waves. For example, a new function of RFID technology being offered by access control companies is feature tracking options. Personnel can wear the RFID tag that uniquely identifies each employee and detect their presence in personnel areas. This can be done without pushing a button or swiping a badge. Another major functionality of the RFID tag is its durability. RFID tag technology has provided a mechanism that is more advantageous than barcode. If embedded in plastic, even with the cheapest inlays, RFID tags can last forever. This type of technology has been very beneficial to the transportation industry, where tracking inventory is a great advantage and often a necessity. Some RFID tags can monitor temperature, humidity, pressure, radiation, and presence of ammonia gases. This technology is often used inside rail cars to ensure the integrity and stabilization of their contents.
Okay, so the first step in measuring the value that RFID technology can actually provide a business is to define a business map of the future technical and operational changes that the business is considering in the future. So some key questions to determine this would be: how effective and efficient are the existing business processes in place? What are the effectiveness and efficiency goals for the processes of the business? And how can RFID help reach those goals in the future? And we've identified some of the main added value areas provided by RFID to a business, and they would be cost reduction, obtaining and maintaining a competitive advantage, shielding a company and customers from purchasing counterfeit items, increasing corporate revenues, and shrinkage and theft prevention. So now we're going to go into a little bit more detail in those sources of business value categories that we identified from the previous slide. The cost reduction value case is a target area of many consumer packaged goods companies, retailers, and the United States Department of Defense. Some examples of cost reduction objectives for an RFID program would include lower inventory stock levels, the reduction of waste, reducing inventory handling costs, reducing logistics costs, and improving asset utilization rates. Understanding competitive advantage can be reduced to a simple question for most organizations. Are we better than our peers in key performance areas? Several leading companies believe that RFID technology is actually the key to increasing their competitive advantage, including the following categories. They increase distribution center productivity, they increase yield per end user, whether at the customer level or the site level. They create a flexible and adaptive supply chain, and they create a cost advantage in logistics categories. There are also several deployments in place to identify counterfeits using RFID technology. And these RFID tagged products, coupled with databases, represent a viable information platform to prevent the distribution and sale of counterfeit products, whether again at the consumer level or at the organization level. Both large and small retailers and manufacturers are developing RFID deployments to drive sales as well. RFID technology empowered companies to design innovative solutions with tangible benefits, including reduced out of stocks, improving order fill rates, improving inventory turns, enhancing in-store customer support levels as well. And RFID has also shown considerable progress in identifying theft and diversion at the shelf level, identifying theft and diversion points in the supply chain. And as the price points of RFID products decline, this technology will provide a widely used tool to prevent theft along the supply chain from the factory floor to the storefront as well. So this graphic shows that with RFID applications used across the supply chain, everyone benefits, from the raw materials manufacturers to the distributors to the consumers. RFID-based solutions have been used for over a decade in the manufacturing industry, and some of these examples of benefits that they've identified have included better inventory management and better waste disposal. At the raw material supplier level, and then at the manufacturer level, they have better product lifecycle management, better security, proof of delivery, and inventory reduction as well. RFID gives the producers total visibility into the movement throughout the supply chain. Relationships with retailers also provide powerful incentives for offsetting some of the costs in the future with the agreement to share information with these valued trading partners. Some of the warehouse and distribution and retailer benefits would also be some shrinkage level identifying, vendor managed inventory at the distribution level, better asset tracking and fleet maintenance and repairs identification at the retailer level, in-store inventory, in-store reactive marketing, and in-store availability. Just there's so much more information available to everybody that's a stakeholder within this supply chain. Outside of just retail and supply chain management, RFID technology can also provide many businesses general sources of business value. And some of these benefits can include reading tags in bulk simultaneously, so no more time-consuming inventory process. They're able to store more data than a barcode technology is able to. The reading is completely automated and data accuracy is extremely high. And RFID identifies individual items, not just groups of items, so you know exactly what's in your store. So it's able to identify and quickly pinpoint and quantify the merchandise and other assets that you currently have available to your consumers.
The second category of impact on business processes that we'll touch on is the enhanced business process. In these cases, the basic business process remains the same, but the unique advantages of RFID begin to be more leveraged. For example, RFID might be used to simultaneously read all of the cartons on a pallet as it passes through a portal, or read all of the serial numbers virtually at once as a pallet of goods leaves a production cell. In these scenarios, the fundamental process remains the same, but is enhanced to drive even greater productivity. A pallet barcode of barcode goods cannot be read at once, and if barcodes on some cartons are not accessible, could not even be read manually after the pallet is built. All of these things contribute to the decreased productivity of barcodes in relation to RFID, and just shows how RFID can be used and leveraged to enhance the productivity of an organization. The third and final category that we'll touch on as far as impacts go is the designing of new business processes. In these applications, which are mostly still being envisioned, the underlying business process is fundamentally altered. One good example might be an RFID network in a distribution center that continually monitors all inventory in near real time. In that scenario, traditional beliefs and processes around traditional physical inventories and cycle counting are completely turned on their heads. That means significant work in designing as-is and to-be processes, getting substantially more input and buy-in from multiple parties than the first two scenarios, likely significant changes to underlying software and even adoption of new applications, substantial piloting and testing, and etc. Today, most RFID developments fall under scenario 1 and 2, but in this scenario, it's really taking advantage of the advanced technology of RFID and how it can contribute to increased productivity and enhancement of the overall processes and control of inventories. In this next section, we'll touch on the impact on business processes that RFID has. Traditionally, it's broken down into three separate varieties of impacts. The first is the basic barcode replacement, which has RFID replacing the traditional barcode. Since traditional barcodes have to be scanned manually by employees, they're highly inefficient when compared to RFID. Since RFID can be scanned by gateways, it takes out the need for hand scanning and makes the whole process much more productive. Another advantage is it eliminates the problems with barcode read rates. Since barcodes do have to be scanned manually, it can create problems for employees having to scan those and not getting the correct numbers of inventory. It also has a much higher rate of reading and sorting because since people aren't having to scan them by hand, it makes it much faster and much more efficient. In terms of best practices, we'll touch on one that involves hospitals and the application of RFID in tracking both patients and hospital assets. During the SARS outbreak of 2003, the Taiwanese government wanted to pair with hospitals in developing a system that would track both employees and assets as well as patients, so that individuals who may have been exposed to the SARS outbreak would be able to be tracked down and quarantined if necessary. The RFID enabled the organization to track patients throughout the hospital as well as assets, and they used this tracking to correlate the exposure of both employees and patients to the SARS outbreak. In terms of implementation of the RFID technology in the hospitals in Taiwan, there were several difficulties that both the hospital and Taiwanese government found. The first of which being the medical staff was resistant to adopting the new technology. There was confusion as to what exactly it was going to do and why it was needed. Second, it's very hard to determine the exact value generated from implementation. Since the healthcare field is so incredibly complex, it's hard to pin down exactly how RFID is going to benefit the organization and how it's going to generate value for the organization. There was also the need to create a new network infrastructure for RFID reading within the organizations. This was quite expensive and could be a hurdle to organizations that do not have a partnership with the government and are receiving funds to implement such a process. And due to the complexity of the healthcare field, there's already so much technology which can create a burden to healthcare workers and would be another reason why medical staff may be resistant to adopting another technology.
So Walmart has been using the RFID technology for about a decade and cites numerous benefits of using it, including more efficient inventory management. The company initially introduced RFID to track pallets of merchandise traveling along its supply chain, including at the warehouse level. In 2007, executives credited the technology with cutting the volume of excess inventory in Walmart's massive supply chain and also cutting out-of-stock occurrences by almost one-third. In 2010, Walmart wanted to introduce the next phase of its RFID strategy, which was placing tags on individual garments. They store more data, provide real-time information, and can be scanned from a distance and without a clear line of sight. So RFID is seeing a rapid growth for apparel tagging. And this application alone demands 1 billion RFID labels in 2012, with a lot more than that expanded out into 2012 and 2013. But the ability to quickly pinpoint and quantify merchandise, as we've talked about in previous slides, is invaluable to the supply chain management and may also drive business value. They also deliver increased asset visibility and enhanced information content and velocity to management teams. So in conclusion, although there are some concerns about RFID technology, such as security and control of information, the technology is able to provide businesses with greater efficiency, intelligence, accuracy, and timeliness when coordinating activities along the supply chain